All right, so let's move on to Lorelei's pet battle music. Oh, that was terrible.
That was miserable, dude. That was just weak.
Hey, everybody, sit down around the hearth, grab a frosty mug of ale. Welcome to the Lion's Pride Tavern, where we discuss all things Azeroth. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Lion's Pride Tavern podcast number 36. Tonight we talk about our weekend's raid, and we've got some weird but amazing fan base news to share with you. But before we talk about all of that, let's start off with introductions. I'm your host, Fafford. I play a Dwarven Beastmaster Hunter in the awesome game World of Warcraft. Next up is JobUui.
Hi, I'm JobUui. I play a Worgen Frost Mage.
And Lorelei.
Hello, it's Lorelei, your Night Elf Fury Warrior.
Is it summer up there yet, Epistle?
Oddly, it was winter last week, summer this week. I don't know what's going on around here, but I'm Epistle, a Draenei Protection Paladin.
And so sad, Tapachino can't make it tonight. She's still sick from what she had last weekend. Get better, Tap. We all love you.
Feel better.
See you soon, Tab.
All right, we're going to jump right into the raid. Let's just talk about what we did, and then after JobUui explains it all, we will get into some specifics. JobUui?
All right, so on our first night out, we took down the last 5 on normal that we did the previous week. Then after that, we moved on to Heroics, and we took down Scorpirion, and then took Chromatic Anomaly out. And moved on to Trilliax. We had a chance to pull Trilliax once, and it didn't go so great. But we did have 30 people, and it got a little bit messy. Then, on Saturday night, we came back, and we took down Trilliax after a couple of tries. We had to clean up a couple things. People accidentally stepped into the beam a little bit. And then we moved on, and we took on Croesus. And after, I think, 3 tries, on our third try, we finally defeated Croesus, which was awesome.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yay!
So then we moved on to Star Augur, which we've discovered seems to be a loot pinata. Star Augur, we pushed Star Augur over in a single try. We made a few little announcements of like what's different about that fight, and we had Sky Chaser give us a suggestion about where we ought to drop our fell ejection, which was a great suggestion. We were dropping it in the northeast and northwest and southeast and southwest, which is if you're looking at that platform, it's where the circles are, basically around on the platform, the decoration circles. And then yeah, we rolled right through that. It was really pretty easy.
Remarkably smooth, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed that way. I mean, first pull, first kill on progression for Star Augur Heroic. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah, from tanking perspective, it was virtually identical.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I want to think that it was probably because we were on such a go-get-'em high from Croesus that
I don't know.
It didn't stand a chance.
I'm not sure, but I do know that we've changed the plan for next week, and we're going to do Star Augur before we go after Croesus. But then we moved on, and we tried Tichondrius, and it was a new fight for some of us to call, and the new mechanic for people to get used to, a little bit faster pace type of thing, and so we didn't get past Tichondrius. We made a few attempts. But we'll do better at it as we move on. I think people will get used to that fight.
So let's talk about each one specifically. I want to start off with Croesus because that was our downfall from the previous week. What do you think was the big change, or what contributed to getting Croesus down this time versus last weekend? JobUui?
Well, one I would say was we had really stellar DPS. That helps a lot on that fight because it is a DPS race. If you don't down him before you get the bridge destroyed, then you just lose. And we had some really stellar DPS coming out. Then The healing was excellent that we were getting. Um, the people were getting in the swirlies really, really well. So the mechanics were being handled very nicely. There were very few people getting zapped by the beams that shoot down the sides. In general, it's just I think everybody was performing really, really well at their different, classes and specs.
Well, I think we need to also talk about our caller.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had uh, Spiffy Bug stepped up and called that particular fight on the one that we won, and that helped a ton because that for me, a lot of times I end up calling the fights, and for me, I find that it's a big distraction from my ability to just focus on my DPS, and that freed me up to just be able to like pew pew pew, and that my DPS went up, and he did a great job. He did a really really good job calling the stuff out, and that I think that helped a ton as well. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, because one of the things I don't know if anybody knows, or that hasn't reached this yet that might be listening, is that the fight seems to get faster towards the end of the fight, and DBM kind of gets out of whack a little bit. So you got to really watch the visual cues rather than wait for DBM to tell you to move. But Epistle, what about you? What's your feelings on it?
Yeah, we actually, from a tanking perspective, it's tricky because DBM is messing us up in terms of when we should be taunting back and forth. So we're having to be very vigilant along with everything else. But from what I saw, though, I think we just were really handling the swirlies excellently this week, and that was just that much less damage coming around, and people survived longer, and it worked.
Yes, there was a U for every swirly.
Mm-hmm.
U swirl, get it? U swirly. Mm-hmm. For those that you know who U swirl is. Lorelai, what about you? What did you think?
It took me back to the first time I did it on heroic when you're like, oh my gosh, we're running out of bridge. No, people did really well with the swirls, and the thing that I saw that gave us some problems in the beginning was the orb, but after that first attempt that we tried, everybody that got the orb did a really great job of running to the back and putting their face in the corner and getting as far away, because right at the end, when you've only got a little bit of space left, that orb can be really dangerous. It'll take out the whole party. So good job to whoever had the orb in the back, because they did really good job placing that away from everybody else.
Absolutely. And I can't praise Spiffy Bug enough because he gave us just enough a warning cue, for instance, so you'd say, okay, orb to the back, everybody to the front. And it made you go, oh yeah, if the orb goes in the back and we're short on bridge, we need to move to the front. So we separate the damage more. It was great. He did a fantastic job, and I would highly recommend him for calling it next week too.
Yeah, me too. That's one less thing I have to call.
Well, it's funny too because we know what we need to do. We know the theory and the reasons why, but the timing is the part that can be tricky. And he had the timing down wonderfully.
Mommy had the add-on, Croesus Assist?
Yeah.
That lets you know after the first one or two attempts of the beam, it lets you know on your DBM bar which side to run to. And I think that helped a lot of people too, because then you could sort of set yourself up, especially at the end, knowing, all right, I can go stand over on the right side and DPS there or heal there. And then the person with the orb knew also they could go to the opposite side of the bridge and drop their orb there.
Right.
One of the things I noticed that when, you get the swirlies, and as a hunter, I turn around to get the ones that were in the back, because it always seems like the ones in the back were always the ones that were up, and I'd be on the wrong side of the bridge, and I couldn't, I didn't see the visual cue, and because DBM's off, you couldn't really tell, and I'd gotten burned a couple of times that way.
One thing that I think that deserves mentioning here is that when somebody's calling the fight effectively, that gives us all the ability to like do what we can focus on our skills a little bit more, because when I'm calling a fight, a lot of times I'm not looking necessarily at my skills and getting my timing right. I'm looking at these timers for when the boss is going to do something next, or I'm watching for a cast far from the boss, or I'm watching other people to make sure they're not in a bad spot, or what have you. And having somebody effectively call that, frees up players to be able to, focus in a little bit more on what they would normally be doing, without having to glance all around on their screen at all kinds of other bits of data during the fight, which I think that helps so much.
It really does. Yeah. And I've said that, we've said that in past podcasts, that when you're a raid leader and you're trying to do everything and do all the extra mechanics, as we call it, the ones that most people don't take care of, running out and grabbing something, it really does wreak havoc on your DPS.
Yeah, it makes it tough, because your attention is split. You're paying attention not just to what you're doing, but what the boss is doing and what other people are doing as well. And when somebody else is calling the fight, at least I notice it heavily, because I end up calling a lot of stuff on some of the fights, especially during progression. That it's a really nice change of pace for me to just be able to focus in and just womp on the boss, rather than paying attention to all those timers and stuff.
Yeah. So hats off to everybody who helps with that stuff. Spiffy Bug, great job on the calling. I can't say it more. That was awesome. So, but now that you've done it, you're gonna probably have to do it the next week and the next week and the next week.
Well, hopefully pretty soon it becomes old hat.
Yeah.
Because that's how it usually goes. Is we get to a fight and we need a lot of calls and stuff, until we've downed it about 3 times, and after that we don't really need much calls very often anymore. And players start to get the hang of it, and it's just we learn all the moves and the timing and stuff, and it just becomes old hat.
Yeah. Very cool.
Okay.
Tapachino, what do you think? Oh, I think the healing went just great. We did a good job.
I don't believe you did that.
I told her if she wasn't going to be here, we are going to make fun of her.
Okay, so in the background, I'm going to go chirp, chirp, chirp.
Yep.
Chirp,
Oh, yeah.
chirp,
There you go.
chirp,
Tweet,
chirp,
tweet, 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 tweet.
Mhm.
We love you, Tap. We miss you. Get better. She's got like all sorts of massive infections.
Oh, God.
Oh my. Well, sinus infections and that kind of stuff. She's on antibiotics. She actually left. She actually, just so the fans know, she actually logged in right before. She goes, "I'm not gonna make it, but here's some stuff I want you to say in my place." So
well, she was gonna come, but we, to be fair, we were like, "Hey, you're under the weather. Go ahead and take a time out here. You get some rest. Drink your OJ."
Exactly. All right, so I want to throw a shout out real quick, and it doesn't necessarily have to be for Croesus, but to Dordan, because after last week's raid, him and I got together and we went over the difference between his Beastmaster and my Beastmaster, and he made a few changes on my talents and stuff for me, and got me to just look at other things. One of the biggest things was I had a trinket that I wasn't using that does 835,000 K damage in splash damage to everybody in 10 yards. That was pretty huge. So I got that going for me now. So my DPS actually almost improved almost 100K overnight. So thanks, Jordan.
Definitely you've improved on the DPS charts. You were racing for the bottom for a while there, and you've climbed the charts significantly.
Well, if I didn't have to do anything, I kind of got into the middle. I was like 6 and 7, but I hit 2 on Croesus. Or no, 3. You were 2. You were number 2.
I
Jordan
hit
was
2
number
finally.
1. So yeah, I know.
Well, I know how it
Ted
feels there in the middle. I was playing the Fire Mage for a while there, and I was getting pretty used to the middle. and getting used to frost now, so I feel like I'm climbing again.
I know Tensoon was like, hunters should be outlawed. Because at one point it was all green at the top of the charts.
Mm-hmm.
So after Croesus, we went to Star Augur. And yes, we did an awesome job on Star Augur. But we made a couple of changes to combat stuff. And I think there's somebody we need to shout out for that too. So JoeBui? Or
Yeah,
did you already?
Yeah, we did. We mentioned her, Sky
Yeah,
Chaser.
Sky Chaser, yeah.
Yeah, the change there, that was a really great suggestion, and more suggestions like that from everybody. Like if you've got a good way to handle a mechanic, feel free to throw that out there, because if it makes sense and it's something that works with the group, and it's going to help us out, by all means throw that suggestion out there, and it might work for us as a group too. And thank you, Sky Chaser, for putting that suggestion out there. That was a good one. And I think it helped for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I would have never thought of putting the fell ejection in the center of the entire map, rather than because normally we put it to the very outside edge, but because we have to get far away from her at one point, if we would have had the fell ejection there, it wouldn't have worked. But it gives us somewhere to go now. So we basically made a center ring around her between her and the edge, and that worked out really good.
Yeah, kind of a sliced donut of fell ejection on the floor. And also a shout out to Durag too, because I did see, we were leaving the north, south, east, and west as our avenues out for the melee. And at one point during the fight, we did have some fell block off one of those pathways. And almost as soon as it got blocked off, I saw Durag run over there and just, he was clearing the fell, and he cleared that pathway almost immediately. So I was like, hey, nice work there.
Yeah.
It's way easier for the tanks to do it when it's clumped like that, though, because then we just go to one spot, clear it out. It's so much easier than what we have been doing, actually.
Yeah, well, it's probably a little bit closer. He's a dwarf. He got really short legs, so it takes him twice as long to get there.
Yeah, and he can't see over the little piles of fell either.
Yeah, and we did talk about that too, about doing a little 4-step. Drop some fells, take a step back, drop some fell, take a step to the left, drop some fell, take a step forward, and it makes it really tight. It overlaps it a lot, and I think that helped too. Everybody was really on the ball with that.
So I have to admit that you mentioned it. So I did that. I stepped to the right, then I stepped to the back, then I stepped to the left,
and then you pulled the boss.
No. Nice.
Not this time.
No, not this time. I stepped forward and I painted myself in the center of my 4 corners. And I went to the center, and there I stood. I had fell completely surrounding me. And one little sliver of fell without fell that I was standing in. But it was good. All right. Then where did we go? We went from Star Augur to Tichondrius. So yeah, now that was the first time. Now guys got to remember as the fans, Croesus was our progression. So we did Croesus, and we were so empowered. We all grew 3 feet bigger than we normally were, and then went to Star Augur and just said, "You're going down," and step into a Slim Jim, and took her right down, or him. Her? Him? What did we determine? Him? Yeah.
It's a him.
I think it's a him.
Yeah. And took him down, and then we had to go all the way to Tichondrius, and I think we lost our poop.
It's just there's
a whole new mechanic.
Yeah, there's a new mechanic, and people were a little unsure about it, kind of thing. We tried to explain it, but we did that fairly quickly, and then got into it because we were running short on time. And we got a couple of pulls there, and I think it'll improve dramatically as everybody, including myself, gets used to that. Because we're doing a calling out. Hey, go pop your brand, kind of thing, and we call out the symbol above the person's head. And I think as people get used to that and where to position themselves, they'll do a lot better with that as we go along.
Well, and I only got it once, And so I'm waiting for my bubble to be called. And then I ran up there, and it was like as soon as I ran up there, all the melee left.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
wait, we have to have 4 people in here for this to blow.
Yeah,
So I
and we
kept
were
getting closer and closer.
a little short on melee, and I at one point too, like I got it on myself and went to go pop it, and there wasn't enough melee in there, and I was like, "Oh crap!" So then I started trying to chase around ranged people, and they kept running away
And they're
from
running
me.
away.
Yeah, they were running away from me, and I'm like, "Stop running away! I'm trying to pop this thing," and so yeah, it'll get better. Also, we were missing some folks. Like I said, melee was a little shy on that fight, but we'll do better as we go forward on that fight, I think.
And we can all talk about this, but I really think we need to, and I know it's the hardest boss, but I think we need to try the one that walks around the
Spellblade?
Speedwalker. Spellblade.
Yeah. What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Just to
that's
see how
going to
badly
take
we
a
lose?
lot of paying attention to where you're putting your foot down.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
It is.
that the whole fight's like that.
And one of the reasons why, like, I've been advocating for not doing Star Augur or not doing Spellblade right away, is because I want us to get some heroic gear from some of the other bosses that I know are doable, and then when we're a little bit more powerful, then take on Spellblade, because I think that's gonna help push that one over. There's some mechanics in there that are gonna be a little tricky for our group, I think.
Oh yeah, speaking of loot drops, so very, very little rolling on the loot drops. So
That's been nice.
that's
Yeah.
telling you that people are like, oh, I got loot, I'm keeping it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's probably a good thing before we take on Spellblade.
And I've looked at like what a lot of other raid groups chose to do as far as like which bosses they chose to attack first and all that, and there's a lot of differing opinions on it, but generally speaking, most of the groups go after Croesus and Star Augur and Tichondrius before taking on Spellblade.
Okay, well that makes sense. I know she's got a lot going on,
And
because she's got the 3 different, arcane fire and frost going on.
yeah, and they work differently, but I should note that, and I'm speaking about progression. I'm not talking about like groups that are used to the fights. Most groups that once they're used to Spellblade is done first, and then they do the others. But for progression, a lot of the groups go to Croesus or Star Augur before they take on Spellblade.
Yeah, because I know when we got Star Augur down in one poll, we're like, okay, which boss now?
Surprise?
And everybody's like, so which boss are we going to? As they're heading out the door, and we're like, we don't know.
Yeah, I figured we were going to Tyke at that point. That's the obvious choice. Botanist it can get messy fast and all that. It's just a tougher fight. There's no mechanical differences, but it's just a tougher fight, and I've seen a lot of groups kind of struggle with Botanist for a little bit until people get a little bit better heroic gear.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. I mean, Tichondrius didn't seem too bad. Just the extra game mechanic. The rest of it was all pretty much the same. I mean, we got him down to about half, so not as close as we have in the past to some of these bosses that are progression. And I think as we go along, the bosses are supposed to get harder and be able to take more damage. And so, I think both polls were right about 50%.
I think a big thing that contributed to that too was that the distraction of the Searing Brand from Tichondrius, that mechanic distracted a lot of the ranged from their AoEing down the ads in that particular fight. They were staying up for quite a long time, and that happened to me myself as well, because I was trying to call out the brands and trying to pay attention to the ads, and I was getting a bit distracted too.
Yeah, because I think we only got to the first bat phase, or just past it.
Yeah, we did get through the bat phase once, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk a little bit about our weird but amazing fan base news. Now, JoBui and I talked about this pre-podcast, so you guys haven't heard yet. So, This week's downloads from Podomatic are 1679. Google Play, iTunes, and the unique feeds of the other unique feeds that are not actually Podomatic were 1592. For a total of 3,282 fans listening to our podcast.
That's
Hello, everyone.
amazing.
Now, here's the weird part. On May the 4th be with you day, which is what Star Wars' unofficial birthday, May the 4th, we had 1,438 people listen to us on one day. Now, I would have thought maybe that's a little crazy, but we had 19 visits, which those are people that just came to the page and looked, but didn't actually play the podcast. The downloads are actually plays that they downloaded. And there was 1,438 on one day.
Wow.
Typically the unique feeds are about 200, 250, somewhere in there. And then the Podomatics, they can vary from, it usually varies on the day that, because we always come out every Tuesday. Every Monday with our podcast. And Monday's usually the strongest day. But wasn't May the 4th Wednesday? Or was that Tuesday?
No, May the 4th was Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
So unbelievable. On a Thursday.
Well, let me say this. Those folks who came on May the 4th, I hope you're still listening. I hope you enjoyed the show and are still listening. That'd be great to have you guys continue to listen. I hope you got something out of it.
And just so you know, if for all those people that are hopefully listening to this one too, that you can get a hold of us if you have any questions at all on Facebook. We've got a facebook.com/Lions Pride Tavern. Please go there, like us, subscribe to that particular page. For some reason, I don't know why, but we had the contact us button was actually linked to my YouTube channel, or no, the Podomatic channel, Podomatic website. And I'm not sure why it was doing that, but it's now changed, so it'll link to it. Actually, I think it actually says email. So now you can email us directly from the Facebook page. So feel free, shoot us an email. If I get one that's, for instance, say it's directed at Epistle, I email him directly with the question so he can answer it. So, if you have a specific question for a specific panel member, don't be afraid to go ahead and ask that. Or if you just want to ask a simple question, or, we had an influx of people who have wanted to come join our guild because they listen to our podcast and they're like, you guys sound really cool to be around. And yeah, so don't be afraid, give us a shout. You can always go to our YouTube channel and leave a comment in the YouTube, and I'll see that and get it out to the appropriate people. So, thanks for listening, guys. I mean, now it could have been because we shouted out to the Goblin Goldcast last weekend.
I was just about to ask you that. Because they said they were going to let people know about us, because they've been listening to us too.
They have. Those two guys, they're fantastic to listen to if you ever listen to them. They talk about how to make gold in the world of Azeroth. And I listened to them. I came across, I just love the name, Goblin Goldcast. I thought that was cool. And then I heard them being interviewed on Rose's podcast, Realm Maintenance.
Realm Maintenance.
Yeah. And I was like, I should mention them next time we're on the air. And so then I sent him a video email, actually, or an audio email, and said, hey, just so you know, we shouted you out, and they got back to me and they're like, yeah, well, we're in Las Vegas making real gold this next week. So they said, we'll shout you out in their next podcast, podcast number 40. So if you guys want to listen to somebody who's going to shout us out, go listen to the Goblin Goldcast. Episode number 40. Don't know when they're going to do it. It'll probably be this week, I would think, because they were only going to spend a week. Unless they hit it big in Vegas, then they might not be back,
That's true.
I told them put 5 on red for me. All right, it's that time again. Cue the music. It's Lorelei's Pet Battle Minute.
Howdy, howdy. Today, I would like to talk to you about a zone pet battle master, and that's Fell Soul Seer. And you can find him in the southern area of Fell Soul Hold. And I found that this is a really good one to use 2 leveling pets, which is usually not very often. Um, I put in a mechanical Pandaren Dragonling, and I give him breath, bombing run, and decoy. And so far, when I've done him, I've been able to take out all 3 pets. So it's a good chance. Try it yourself and see if it'll work for you. Of course, sometimes RNG just doesn't go your way, but try it again. So I can use 2 leveling pets. Put in your leveling pet first, one of your leveling pets, and just take him out right away. He doesn't have to do any attacks. And then I put in my Dragonling and start out with a bombing run, and then pull him out, put in your second leveling pet. And that one you want to be at least 1,000 health, just in case the other pet doesn't attack. So you can throw out anything you've got and then switch him out and finish up with the Dragonling. And just keep up your decoy and your bombing run and fill in with breath and have some good luck with that. And I hope it works for you too. Let me know. And that's the Pet Battle Minute for today.
Very cool. Hey, just out of curiosity, have you gone back to do the dungeon ever again?
You know, I haven't. I was thinking I need to do that because I've been trying to find some things about the new ones in Dead Mines. And they have the list of pets out. And I'm going through my pets to make sure I've got enough pets to take out all the mechanicals that are going to be in there this time.
Oh, yeah. But now, Dead Mines doesn't come out till 7.2.5, right?
Right. So we've
Yeah,
got some
yeah,
time for
got
that.
some time. Yeah. All right. Getting deeps with JoBui.
This week's advice for better DPS is don't hold back most of the time. All too often, players will hold back on using some of their most powerful abilities because the situation isn't entirely perfect to use it. While that may seem like a good idea, more often than not, it's going to hurt your DPS more than it helps it. Some abilities have long cooldowns, and in a boss fight, using those abilities when they become available can mean the difference between getting to use those abilities 2 or 3 times during the fight. Even if the situation isn't exactly perfect for using an ability, it is generally better to use that ability more often rather than waiting for it to line up with other abilities that you might normally pair it with. There are times when it might not be bad to wait a few seconds for another ability to be ready. As an example, as a Frost Mage, I would want to send out a Frozen Orb just before triggering Icy Veins. So if Icy Veins comes off cooldown, and Frozen Orb only has about 10 seconds left on its cooldown, I'll likely wait to trigger Icy Veins until Frozen Orb is ready. But if my Frozen Orb still has 20 or 30 seconds left on it, I won't wait for Frozen Orb, and I'll go ahead and trigger Icy Veins without it. While some fights don't last long enough for me to use Icy Veins 3 times during the fight, some fights do. And I'd much rather get the chance to use that huge DPS boost 3 times rather than just 2. This applies to your abilities with shorter cooldowns as well. Use them when you can and where you can, and try and maximize the number of times you use your abilities during a fight. Remember, an ability that goes unused isn't doing damage, which means lower DPS overall. So don't hold back. Use those abilities and keep getting those deeps.
Awesome. Epistles. Come at me. A tanking minute.
Well, today's is a fairly simple one for tanking. It's that moment when you have to save the other tank and save the raid. If you've ever listened to our YouTube channel and seen a raid, you'll occasionally hear Dara Garai saying something like, taunt him back. And while most people in the raid might have thought, okay, that's just a missed taunt or something going on, sometimes there might have been something else going on behind the scenes. So let me take you behind the curtain. There are things called tank killer mechanics in Warcraft. That is a kind of a stacking brand. For example, Searing Brand, a stacking dot on Croesus, will gradually build up and eventually kill a tank. It's just that's the way it's designed. So you have to do the swap mechanic. I think we've talked about that at another time. You don't want too many stacks or you're going to get fried. However, in a fight, weird things can happen. So, for example, recently we're in one situation where my health was getting really low, and I didn't have a cooldown up, and so I was in a bit of a quandary. Darg taunted off, even though he shouldn't have. It gave him an extra stack, which is a bit of a problem. But then he said, taunt him back. Typical procedure for us. What that did is it caused a slight delay. He got one extra stack, which wasn't huge, problematic, but wasn't huge. Not as bad, though, as one of the tanks going down. So taunting back just meant we switched the boss a really quick kind of micro switch, just for a few seconds, and that gave the healers enough time to catch up and go back and forth and stop one of the tanks from dying. So if you ever hear that kind of taunting back in raid, that's often what's going on. One of the reasons we say it out loud, though, is because it's not always obvious. You've taunted the boss, you're thinking you're wailing on him, your health is going down, the other person taunts, there isn't like a big flashing red light that says you've lost threat necessarily. So sometimes in the middle of the heat of the battle, we just say that back and forth to each other, just to keep track that maybe we got the boss by mistake. So just creating that little momentary delay, just that little micro taunt back and forth rather than the larger one back and forth can be just enough to save a tank's life and maybe even save a B-res. Oh, save for the healer who needs it. And that has been, come at me, a tanking minute.
Very cool. Now, like I said, Tapachino's not here, but Jobui has agreed to read what she typed up for us.
This week's Tap into the Healing Minute is always heal Jobui. No, sorry. Let me start that again.
Wait.
Yeah, that's not quite right. This is not a healing tip per se, but it's a perk for you balance druids out there. There are cursed worgens around Val'sharah that can be cured of their affliction. When you come across them and have your scythe weapon, you can heal them. They then turn into human, thank you, and then disappear. She hasn't confirmed it yet, but she's heard that you also get artifact power, which is automatically applied to your weapon when you do that, which seems pretty cool.
That does seem pretty cool. That'd be the first thing I've heard of that automatically applies it.
And she also says that next week she's starting a new healer, or she's going to talk about starting a new healer, which I think a lot of our listeners might be interested in hearing.
Yeah.
More evidence. Warcraft loves druids most.
Well, you know, it's funny that she mentioned the artifact power on a weapon is because I was running around with my mage this weekend, and I just been nailing the artifact power here and there and here and there, and I got to level 52, and I went to click on a 1.2 mil artifact power trinket thing, and I clicked on it. It said, "You are full of artifact power." I went,
wow.
What?
Oh, you haven't empower yet.
I hadn't empowered yet. So
well, at least you got that back.
Yeah. Well, it didn't do anything. Well, yeah, I got it all back, but it didn't. So I had three or four tokens sitting there, and I was like, how do I got to go get this empowered. So I bring Darag out, and I'm saying, how do you do? And he's like, I don't know. You know, so then I talked to Mommy, and she finally got me on the right quest line, because it was one of those ones, the quest said, go talk to this person, but it doesn't give you a quest. You just have to go to where that person's at and then click on them, and they got the little white thing, you know, your little white memory talk thing, and talk to them. And I had to do that like with 15 people. I would have never found that if she hadn't have just walked me through from the very beginning. I just happened to click on him and was like, oh, wait, here's something. I talk to him, and then he sends me to this guy, and then he sends me to that guy. Oh, man, what a nightmare it was. But I got it. I got it empowered. I clicked on it, got my empowered stuff, got all my artifact power back, and I was like, oh, I got a ton of artifact power now. I got 3 on the new lineup. That was
nice.
it.
Yeah.
It's so expensive.
It does seem that way.
The empowered. Oh.
But with the new artifact knowledge, I mean, it used to be like when I would look at, the numbers, and it was, the next artifact or the next level is gonna take 237 million, and I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous, 237 million. But then I look at the artifact knowledge, and at my current level, I'm at level 34 now, and that's 830,000%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does add up.
It does.
I've seen 50 million in a day, before I even hit this level of artifact knowledge. So, it can add up pretty fast now.
Yeah, it was just I thought it was weird because it just capped me out and saying you can't have any more. I'm like, but I've got 4 things to turn in.
Oh, hey, keep in mind, folks, that this is a little tip here for your alts. Once you pass one of the 5 artifact knowledge thresholds, like 30 or 35, you can buy those tokens to send to your alts that will rank them up to a higher percentage than they could before.
Pass
So-
Gabby?
Oh yeah. So if you
Ooh.
if you go to your artifact knowledge vendor in your class hall and you buy one of those tokens, pay attention to what the tooltip says, because it'll tell you how high it'll push the other players or the other characters you have, your alts. And if you're at 30, you can push your alts straight to 25. If you're at 35, you can push them straight to 30. So that can really help a lot for alts.
Yeah,
Yep, definitely.
because as you well know, this is not the expansion for getting alts up.
No, so
No.
any
Mm-mm.
shortcut for alts is a good thing.
Yes. All right. That WFN news, Warcraft Fafford news. So just a reminder, pay attention to the Broken Shore buildings, because this week's random perk on the Neither Disruptor was the Seal of Fate, which meant you could go each day, because each building's only up for 3 days. So by the time you hear this podcast, the Neither Disruptor will be over. But you could have gone each day and got an extra Seal of Fate by completing the one quest that it was requiring. So, got to really watch those, and they're random. So it's not going to be like the next time the Neither Disruptor's up, you're going to get this Seal of Fate. But pay attention to it. Go see it. Look at what it does. Other than that, the Dark Moon Fair ended Sunday, so you don't get your reputation bonus. Every time the Dark Moon Fair comes up, guys, you've got to remember, go there, get your reputation bonus for the hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, and then run around to get your rep so you can get your flying. And no, Fafford still doesn't have flying.
Ooh, still no.
Gosh. God, you got to get that.
I am so over Suramar. It's not even
Oh,
funny.
that must be so
That's
painful.
true.
I really liked those quests, though. They were some of the best quests that I think Blizzard has put out in a long time.
I enjoyed the chain.
It's just, I don't enjoy running around in town. You put on your
Oh.
mask and you run around, oh, I turned the corner and there's somebody with an eye above their head. Of course, it's kind of nice when Mommy's helping me, because then I can just get on her bird and she just flies me over and drops me down. Of course, I go left, and she's like, which left? All right, go east. So, but she's been a big help with that. But it's, I don't know. I've logged on 2 or 3 times this week during the week after work and went, all right, I better go do some more quests. I've got everything else done. I just got to finish Suramar.
It's really good artifact power, too, especially at this point.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. I've been, well, when we did Saturday's raid, I was maybe 2.5 bars away from going up another artifact level. And just in a couple of bosses, I had all the power I needed. I was going to stone out, but we didn't have a warlock.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
It is
so
nice
I waited.
having a warlock there.
It is. We like warlocks for their lock closets.
Their DPS is pretty good, too. But,
Yeah.
their lock closet is in cookies.
Okay, so let's move on. We're going to do reminiscing the past, stories or memories, or maybe just thoughts on areas of old in the world of Azeroth. And this week we're going to do one of my favorite places, Outland. I loved Outland. Jobui,
Uh,
you see how I
I
set you up there?
yeah, yeah. I don't like Outland. You know, like but I don't know what it is about Outland. I can say that um, I do like one part of Outland. Uh, I like when I go to Outland, the one area that I do like is Negrand. I like Negrand in Outland. Um, but and I think Blade's Edge is really interesting geographically speaking. I really like all the big spires, the big pokey bits of the mountain sticking up all over the place. I think that looks pretty cool. But in general, I just never really liked Outland. I think um, if I had to pick my favorite thing in Outland, I kind of like Area 52. I like some of the dudes in Area 52. I like some of the the dialogue that you get from Area 52. But in general, I just don't like Outland, and that's just kind of where I fall into it. Like every time when I was leveling tunes, which I haven't been in a long time, when I get to Outland, I'm like, oh, you gotta go through Outland again, and then I'd get through it and I'd get out of Outland as soon as possible. But yeah, the Grand's pretty nice in Outland.
So what you're saying is the best part of Outland for you was leaving.
Yes, yes, that was awesome. When I get to leave Outland, I'm like, yes, I'm done with Outland. Goodbye, Outland. I'll see you next time I'm leveling a tune.
Lorelei, Outland.
Yeah, I agree with Joe Bowie. Negrand was the place I liked the best. Um, Hellfire Peninsula was just one of those. All right, here it is, a torn up, ugly looking place. It's full of green, whatever it was at the time, and it was just awful to get through. Reavers, every time you turned around, a Reaver was just stepping on your face. And now I did like Shat, um, and when I was not even able to go in there and play around in that area, I had a friend who took a couple of us and paid somebody what I thought was a tremendous amount of money at the time, couple hundred gold, to port us there so that we could set our hearth there, and then we could go right into Stormwind. And that was where I ran into a guildie who just showed off all their flying mounts, and I thought that was amazing to see the different kind of flying mounts that you could get, because I couldn't even fly at the time. I was still riding around um, on a horse or something. I wouldn't buy the chicken for the longest time. I refused to buy the chicken on my gnome, and I just ran from one place to the next while everybody else was riding. Um, Before the days when you could actually change out your your mounts and ride anything, I just couldn't do it. But that's another story. But Outland is another one of those places that for somebody who has issues with heights and falling, I could not stand it, because I'm running and all of a sudden the world's broken and you're standing sideways, and I just couldn't go near the edge of anything in that place, and I hated it.
I hated that part too. Everything is. It reminded me of the original Batman series. Now, I may be dating myself here. The original Batman series, when you'd come across the Penguin's lair, everything was at an angle, and that's what it reminded me of.
I will say that I did enjoy going back to Outland as a high level character and absolutely destroying a Fell Reaver. That
Yeah,
was
we
fun.
all did that. We all had to go
Oh,
back and
Yeah,
do
yeah.
yeah.
that at least one time.
Yeah, gotta seek that vengeance.
I hated that sound it made, because you're questing along and you're gathering whatever you need, and oh no, run! It didn't matter what direction you ran, he still got you.
Well, except for the guy that I ran into who was getting chased by the Fell Reaver when I landed and destroyed it. And, like he turned around after it fell to the ground and kind of looked at me, and then I flew away. I'm like, yeah, I'm the hero.
He didn't even give you a wave or a salute?
No, he just turned around and looked at me, and then I, mounted up and flew away.
Off into the sunset.
Well, Epistle, your reminiscing story.
You see, mine's a little different because I came to the game later. So I came in after everyone had left. Well, I remember being level 20 when everyone was off into Outland, and I was part of a guild, and they were chatting about their discoveries and how much fun they were having, and I felt like the younger kid at the party who couldn't do anything with the big kids. And so I kept leveling like crazy to try to get there. And then when I finally get there, people had been playing for quite some time, and there was less interest in different zones, so people weren't helping each other either. The alts weren't up there, and so I felt like I was kind of wandering around. But what that did for me was created a kind of a sense of this big open world and new places and different stuff. And I had no gold, so I had to farm all my mats. And I remember spending a lot of time up in Blades Edge Mountain, just near Area 52, to get stuff for, I think it was a Spellfire set, if I remember, because I wanted to get some decent gear, and I hadn't been raiding and didn't figure I would be in the near future. So that was kind of my ticket to make my character more powerful. So I just remember spending a lot of time there, and I liked the wildness and the way the whole place was just discombobulated. So for me, that was a kind of a really neat thing. And then I finally got the flying mount, months after everyone else had. I really felt like I had arrived. I had done something amazing. And yeah, I think then it got winter here, and I decided I'd hang around Nagrand as well because it felt warmer and cozier.
So I have to admit, I was part of that group from the very beginning. We were waiting for Outland to open. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but on YouTube, there's it's like a cartoon. It's really, really short. They're probably like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minute little cartoons. Carbot Animations make them, and it's called Wowcraft. You guys definitely need to go check them out because they're just like little funny stories. They don't speak. They use all the sound effects from World of Warcraft as their emotions, So, and they have a really great one where they have the big portal all set up, and Blizzard's counting it down, because they were going to go online at midnight server time, and there's like 10,000 people or more waiting to go in the portal to get into Outland, this new area. And it goes 3, 2, 1, and everybody rushes in, and then the servers crashed.
Of course.
Yeah.
I
can see
I-
that.
And they
think I
have,
remember that, actually.
yeah. And if you go to Carbot Animations, they have a playlist called Wowcraft, and one of the ones there is from that particular moment, and they show thousands of these little, cartoon characters waiting in line, and the portal opens and a bunch of people rush in, and then the portal cracks in half. And then they go on to the next episode, and it's like questing. You run up to the quest guy. He has a quest, and you get your quest, and then it's like 200 people run by and grab everything, and you're standing there going, there's nothing alive. I can't finish this quest because they keep dying faster than they appear. So I was originally in that. I totally get that. I didn't mind Outland to the point where once it calmed down, because if you got in it right at the beginning like I did, it was crazy. You would literally go to your questing area, and there'd be nothing there. Everything's dead.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you had to wait and wait. Yeah.
That was Quel'Danis. I remember I came in maybe a couple of months before the end of Burning Crusade, and I had to do the dailies out there on Quel'Danis, and it was just horrible because you stayed out there for hours just waiting to kill something.
Yeah. I'm so glad that Blizzard has made a change in that regard, in the general scheme of things, where if somebody else has tagged something, generally you can tag it too, because I ran into that so often back in the day. You know, like I'd come up and I remember like in what's that blue zone that's down there? The mushroom zone.
Oh, Zang Marsh.
Yeah, Zhang Marsh. Down there was these dudes that you had to kill. Like you had to kill a certain number of this shaman dude or this particular type of bad guy, kind of thing. And it seemed like they were always dead. And I would get a quest like that, and then I'd spend 15 or 20 minutes just flying around trying to find one of those guys to kill. And then I would see somebody and they'd be attacking it, and I couldn't do anything about it. And
You know, that was never a problem for me, which is what I really liked about it, I guess.
Yeah.
I got there late and everything is still alive.
that must be why you liked it, and I
Yeah,
did
probably.
not.
That's funny. So no, I didn't mind Outland too much. I made a lot of money farming netherweave cloth. Netherweave?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
made like tens of gold.
I'll
Hey,
fortune.
The
That
bags.
tens of gold added up and added
I-
up, and
I-
I made a lot of gold off of WoW doing those things.
Well,
Yeah.
I know. I was like talking about the inflation more, like you know,
Yeah.
because nowadays, like the gold we made back in those days, like seemed like a lot, but it wasn't much by what we were used to now.
Oh, you're not kidding. I've told this story before. I got given a gold piece for joining some guy's guild, and I lived off of it for like months and months. Because I was like a level 2, you know. It's like, oh, I got a gold piece. I've never seen one of these before.
I
You
can buy
know?
greens in the auction house.
Yeah.
I can buy greens. That's great.
And now I look back going, oh, at one time I had 750,000 gold. you know, you know, things change.
Times change, yeah.
Hmm.
All right, guys, I think we're going to call it. That's pretty close to an hour. And I want to thank all of our listeners. You guys are the reason we do this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't thank you enough. Keep those suggestions coming. Let us know what you think. If there's something specific you want to talk about or have us research for you, let us know. Put it in the comments. Send us an email at lionspridetavern@yahoo.com or go to our website at facebook.com/lionspridetavern and leave a comment there. You know, I've watched it almost every day, so let us
We
know.
love the questions. We love them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So thank you, fans. Thank you, panel, for coming each week. I really appreciate it. This wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for you guys. So,
Pleasure as always.
yeah.
Yep. It's fun.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye, folks.
If you like this podcast, throw us a like and subscribe to our channel. And please, leave comments or questions below. Maybe we'll answer them on the air next podcast. We are hosted on Podomatic.com. Our website is lionspridetavern.podomatic.com. Our podcast also airs on iTunes for Apple users, Google Play for Androids, and YouTube. Just search World of Warcraft Lions Pride Tavern Podcast. See you next week, and thanks for listening.